Hi, this is Plague Warrior, and today I thought we would go over inspirations for writing, just in case you get stuck in your own writing, or you're just trying to figure out what you want to write that is new. Before we get started, I just want to say I hope everybody has a great weekend. So let's get to it. So, one thing when I get stuck when I'm writing is, and this is an easy one, is to read over what you've already wrote, because when you go back and you see where you've been, you can kind of see where you need to go. Trying to think of an example here is something along the lines of, thinking about the hero's journey. If you have the hero, let's say it's in the beginning, if you have the hero not accept his journey, this is kind of an easy one, but if you have that hero not accepting his journey, you eventually have to have something that happens that causes him to accept his journey. Now, I know this seems quite obvious, but still needs to be said. Kind of like if you were thinking, let's give the example, when Obi-Wan first talks to Luke saying, hey, we need to go defeat the Empire. And he says, I can't do that. I need to go and stay on the farm and help my aunt and uncle. Well, what eventually happens later on in the story, we all know, his aunt and uncle die at the hands of the Empire. So that makes him say, well, I gotta go. I don't have nothing keeping me here any longer. Plus, I want justice for my aunt and uncle. So yes, I'm going to go help you. So because we know, what needs to happen is that he needs to accept his journey. We know that we need to take away what was keeping him there and not accepting his journey. So that's one thing that can help. And kind of along the same line is checking your outline. If you've already got everything mapped out, but maybe you're just kind of missing a finer detail of, let's say that you're missing the midpoint, but you don't feel like you're quite yet there yet. You could try to find a connection saying some type of crisis needs to happen. Well, what could lead to that crisis? What's going to get him to that point of there's no hope at all? And then you could say, okay, well, this might help. And then you can get to the midpoint crisis after that. Another thing you could do is remember your foundations of writing. When I speak about foundations, sort of the guidelines, the basic rules of writing, introducing your characters, the 3-act structure. There's also many variations, 6-act structure, and yada, yada, yada. But you want to remember these things. I know a lot of people seem to think it's cool and hip to think outside the box and say, I don't need this foundational stuff. I'm just going to write. But when you get stuck on something and you're going outside the box and you're saying, I'm not using any of this stuff, then you're not sure where to go. And then you become lost. Whereas if you stick to the foundations, the 3-act structure, you can say, okay, I've introduced my characters, I've introduced my setting, I've introduced the protagonist. Well, what do I need to do? You're like, oh, wait a minute, I should probably introduce my main antagonist. So, because you don't want to introduce your main antagonist in like the second or third act, because then as people are like, well, what was he even fighting against, or what was it even the point in the first act? So you want to introduce your main antagonist in the first act as well, pretty early on, so that your people know what your hero is trying to fight against. So that's one reason why to keep foundational writing. Now, some of these things that I have mentioned are for, mostly when you're writing something current. I think some of it could be used if you're trying to figure out something new. This next one, though, I think you could use it whether you're currently writing something or you're trying to figure out to write something new, and that is to read, watch, and play something you enjoy. I used to like to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I had an idea for one of my stories from 2 structure decks that came out in Yu-Gi-Oh! And what it was a Dark World structure deck. If nobody knows what that means, it's kind of like the underworld, like Hades and all that. It was like dragons, evil looking, kind of reminded me of Elder things like that from the Lovecraftian, and also fairies. And it had like they didn't look like some of them looked human, some of them looked non-human, and so they came out at the same time. So I was looking at this and I was like, what if I had created like it was a sci-fi story. I said, what if there was like some type of world where there was like an underworld, like a subterranean world, and it was all these, evil things that lived down there and stuff. But then there was an overworld, kind of like a Mount Olympus type thing, and literally like a gigantic mountain. Like it'd be like a continent that was a mountain the size of a continent or something that people lived on as well. And it was like the overworld. And they kind of didn't intermingle much, but, stuff happened and they each had this ruler on top. And it turned out like none of them were all that good. The one down below was evil, but he was evil for reasons, while the one that was, or he was just not good, maybe not evil, but not good. While the overworld one was just plain out evil as well. You just didn't see it coming yet. He was one of those two-faced people. And so that kind of gave me the idea for the story, and I went from there. So I think that's some stuff that you can use. I know this is a little bit of a short video, but it's be some good stuff that you could use to help in your own writing and to help you get inspired. Well, thank you all for listening. Have a great weekend.